Have you ever wondered why a female narcissist comes back right when you finally start getting your peace back? Like suddenly she misses you. Suddenly she wants closure, or suddenly she's nicer to you, maybe even more apologetic to you. And if you have ever gone through that, it can really mess with your head, because part of you starts wondering, did she really change, or was I wrong about her? Did leaving finally wake her up? That is exactly where a lot of men get pulled back into the toxic cycle. So in this episode, I want to break down why female narcissists come back after you leave, what's really driving that behavior, what it does to your mind, and how to protect yourself from getting pulled back into something you already fought hard to escape.
Welcome to the Narc Free Man Podcast.
Welcome back to the Narc Free Man Podcast. I'm Philip Dugas, and this show is about helping men understand narcissistic abuse, break free from toxic relationships, and rebuild their lives. Let's get into it. The first thing you need to understand is this. A female narcissist usually does not come back because she suddenly discovered your worth. They typically come back because she feels the loss of control that she had over you. And that is a huge distinction. And if you miss that, you will misread the whole situation. For example, a healthy woman might come back because she realizes she made a mistake. She values the relationship and she wants to rebuild trust the right way. But a female narcissist will come back because something changed in the power dynamic. When you were chasing her, or when you were over-explaining her, when you were trying to fix everything, when you were still emotionally hooked, she felt in control. But when you leave, when you stop responding the same way, and when you start reclaiming your peace, that control begins to slip. And when control slips, a narcissistic woman often feels something she hates: powerlessness. So what does she do? She tries to re-enter, and not necessarily to love you better, but to see if she can still reach you and still have an effect on you. And that's why so many men get confused when she comes back softer than before, because the softness feels like she's changed, but many times it's just another strategy. So if she doesn't come back because she suddenly loves you the right way, then why does she come back? Let's break down the real reasons one by one. Reason number one is she comes back to test whether she still has access. She wants to know if she still has access to you. For example, can she still text you and get a reply back? Can she still call you and pull emotion out of you? Can she still say something sweet and make you soften? Can she still trigger your guilt? Or can she still get you to explain yourself? Can she still make you doubt what happened? That's the test, because if she still has emotional access, then in her mind, she has not really lost you. And that matters to a narcissistic woman, because toxic relationships are built around control, influence, and emotional leverage. So when you leave her, she may not be grieving you the way a healthy person grieves. She might be testing whether the bond is still available to her. Now, a lot of men misread this as love. It's not always love. Sometimes it's a systems check. She's checking, can I still get in? If the answer is yes, the cycle can restart. That's why I hear a lot of men say, she came back right when I was finally doing better. Exactly. Because that is often when she feels the shift. That is often when she senses she is losing her place in your mind, and she wants to see if she can still reclaim it. Reason number two is she comes back when new supply isn't working. Or in other words, whatever replaced you isn't working the way she hoped. This is important. A lot of female narcissists do not move forward in a healthy, grounded, fully processed way. They often move quickly, talking quick new relationship, quick new attention, quick new validation, quick new emotional supply. And from the outside, it can make you feel like you meant nothing. It can look like she moved on instantly, but a lot of the time, that fast move is not real healing. It's emotional substitution. It's an attempt to replace the attention, the regulation, and control she got from you. So what happens when the new guy is not as patient as you, not as stable as you, not as useful as you? And what happens when that new relationship stops feeding her the way she expected? Well, a lot of the time she circles back. And it's not because she suddenly understands your value at a deep level, but because she remembers what you provided, your steadiness, your attention, your willingness to work through things, your emotional availability, your history, your familiarity. You become the known source. And to a narcissistic woman, familiar supply can feel very attractive when newer supply disappoints her. Again, that does not automatically mean she misses you in a healthy way. It may mean she misses what you gave her access to, and that's a hard truth. But for many men, it's exactly what happened. See, a lot of men describe it like this: she discards them, blamed them, moved on quickly, acted cold, acted like the relationship was nothing. Then weeks later or months later, suddenly she reaches out. Maybe it's casual, maybe it's emotional, maybe it's just checking in, or maybe it's some crisis she suddenly needs help with. Maybe it's a memory, or maybe it's a fake apology. And the man sits there confused because he's thinking, if I was so terrible, why is she back? And that question alone has pulled so many men back into the trap because they interpret her return as proof that the relationship mattered. But that's not always what it means. Sometimes it means the replacement didn't work. Sometimes it means the control slipped. And sometimes it means she needs emotional re-entry. And if you don't understand that, you'll read the moment emotionally instead of strategically. Reason number 3, she comes back because your detachment triggers her ego. A female narcissist believes she should be able to affect you, that you should miss her, that you should stay emotionally tied to her, that you should still want her approval, that you should still hurt over her. That's why your detachment can be so triggering to her. When you stop chasing, something happens. When you stop reacting, something happens. And when you become calm, quiet, and emotionally unavailable to the cycle, that unsettles her more than anger ever did. Why? Because your detachment communicates something she doesn't want to accept. She is losing relevance. And narcissistic personalities do not handle irrelevance well. So if you become steady or stop feeding the drama and start rebuilding your life, she may come back just to see if she can still disturb your peace. This is why some men hear from narcissistic exes right when they start moving on, right when they stop looking at her page, right when they stop checking their phone every 5 minutes, and right when their energy shifts. And that is not random. Many times, these narcissistic women are very sensitive to changes in your energy and your availability. And when they sense your detachment, it hits their ego. So they reappear. But it goes even deeper than that, because sometimes she doesn't just come back to reconnect. Sometimes she comes back to reopen a wound. Reason number 4, she comes back to reopen the cycle. A female narcissist might come back after you leave because unfinished emotional loops are useful to her. Now think about the cycle: love bombing, confusion, criticism, gaslighting, withdrawal, and re-engagement. That cycle is powerful because it keeps you unstable, it keeps you waiting, and it keeps you emotionally hooked. And it keeps you thinking maybe this time will be different. So when you leave her and start stabilizing, the cycle is interrupted. And that's a problem for her if she still wants influence. So she may come back and reopen the loop. And maybe with a line like, I've been doing a lot of thinking, or I miss what we had, or you were the only one really understood me, or I know I hurt you, or I wasn't myself. And just like that, the old emotional door opens again. And now you are thinking, all right, reason number 5 is she comes back when she feels you reclaiming yourself. Now, this is a big one. A female narcissist will often come back when she sees that you are becoming yourself again. Think about what happens after a toxic relationship. At first, you are wrecked, right? You're confused, you're exhausted, or still mentally inside the relationship, but then slowly you start rebuilding. You start thinking clearly. Your body begins calming down, and you stop replaying every conversation and start reconnecting with your standards. And you start getting stronger and more disciplined. And that version of you, the version she once destabilized, is now returning. Because when you reclaim yourself, she might feel the loss even more sharply, especially if she benefited from your confusion, or from your guilt, or from your need to fix things. So don't be surprised if she circles back right when you become more grounded. And a lot of the time, your strength is what triggered the return, because your clarity threatens the old dynamic. This is why I've heard so many men say things like, the moment I stopped caring, she came back. Or the moment she saw that I was happy, she texted me. The moment I got into a better rhythm, she reached out. That's not always coincidence. Sometimes these narcissistic women can feel when they are no longer the emotional center of your life. And when that happens, you'll see that they often try to reinsert themselves, because your peace reminds them of what they no longer control. Now, let's talk about how the comeback usually shows up, because many men are looking for something dramatic, but usually it's subtle. It may show up as a random check-in, or a vague apology, or a practical excuse, or a memory. Again, a crisis, or a soft compliment, a late night emotional text, just wanted to see how you were doing, a child-related issue if kids are involved, or a social media breadcrumb. Could be a like, a view, a follow, or a weird indirect signal. But the form doesn't matter as much as the function. The function is usually to reopen access. That's why the message itself can feel confusing, because it may not say much on the surface, but emotionally it says a lot. It says, I'm still here. Can I still reach you? And if you reply from loneliness, pain, hope that she'll change, guilt, or unfinished emotions, the answer becomes yes. Now here's the question you need to ask instead of, did she change? Because when a female narcissist comes back, most men ask the wrong question. They ask, did she change? That's not the best first question. The better question is, what has actually changed in her pattern? Not her words, not her tone, not her temporary softness, her pattern. Has she taken real accountability? Has she named specific behaviors without blaming you? Or has she shown long-term consistency? And has she respected boundaries without punishing you? And has she done the deep work without needing applause for it? Has the manipulation pattern actually broken? Because if the pattern is still there, then the comeback is not the miracle you want it to be. It's just another phase. That question protects you, because narcissistic returns often sound different before they actually are different. And a lot of men confuse a new tone with a new person, and those are not the same thing. So how do you actually protect yourself when she comes back? Let's talk about that. First, slow everything down. Do not let her urgency become your urgency, and don't let her emotion rush your judgment. You don't owe fast access just because she suddenly sounds nicer. Second, watch the pattern, not the performance. Anybody can sound reflective for a few days, or say the right words, or tell you they miss you, or apologize when they feel the loss of control. Watch what happens when boundaries show up. Watch what happens when you don't respond immediately. And watch what happens when you don't emotionally feed the moment. That reveals more than the comeback message ever will. Third, remember the full story. And this matters, guys. When she comes back, your brain might zoom in on all the good moments you had, the sweet moments, the beginning of your relationship and the connection you guys had. But you must hold the full story, the gaslighting, the blame shifting, the emotional abuse, the walking on eggshells in your own home, the identity erosion, the confusion, the loop. If you only remember the warmth, you'll betray your own healing. Fourth, ask yourself this: am I responding from clarity or from pain? And that question changes everything, because many men don't reopen contact because it's wise. They do it because they are lonely, because they miss the bond, or they want the story to end differently. And that's real, but that's not clarity. And if you are building your future, you cannot make long-term decisions from short-term pain. Here's what needs to happen, guys. A lot of good men struggle with this. This feels harsh. It feels cold. It feels unkind, especially if you are a man with empathy. But here's what you need to do, guys, because these female narcissists will not change. So you need to go no contact. Or if you have kids with her, low contact. This is how your nervous system stabilizes and how the fog clears, and it's how your identity starts returning. Because if every contact with her reopens confusion, guilt, or emotional collapse, then no contact may not just be helpful, it may be necessary. That doesn't make you cruel. That makes you honest about what the pattern does to you. Now, a lot of men stay available because they think being accessible proves they are a good man. No, sometimes being unavailable to manipulation is the healthiest thing a good man can do. So go no contact. I also want to say this because some men need to hear it. If she never comes back, that does not mean you meant nothing. A lot of men secretly look for the return as proof the relationship mattered, and if it doesn't come, they feel discarded all over again. And don't do that to yourself. Her return or non-return is not a trustworthy measurement of your value. A narcissistic woman's behavior is not a mirror of your worth. It is a mirror of her pattern, her supply needs, her ego, her control, and her agenda. Do not measure yourself by whether she comes back. Measure yourself by whether you are healing, whether your mind is clearer, whether your body is calmer, and whether your standards are returning. That's the real scorecard. Now, here's the deeper truth, guys. A female narcissist will often come back after you leave because your exit threatens the story she told herself, the story that she controls the dynamic, the story that you'll always stay, the story that your emotional world still revolves around her, the story that your strength still belongs to her cycle. And when you leave her and mean it, that story cracks. That is why discernment matters so much, because discernment says, I can care and still protect myself, or I can understand the pattern and still refuse it. I can recognize what this is without romanticizing it. Or I can miss her and still not go back. I can feel the pull and still choose peace. That is strength. Real strength is not staying emotionally accessible to someone who proved unsafe. Real strength is being able to recognize the pattern and refuse re-entry. So why do female narcissists come back after you leave? Again, it's because they feel the loss of control, or her new supply may not be working, because your detachment triggers her ego, and because your clarity threatens the old dynamic, and your peace reminds her she is losing relevance. But the more important question is no longer, why did she come back? The more important question is, why would I reopen the door to something I already know destroys my peace? That is the question that protects you, matures you, and breaks the cycle. And if this episode hit home for you, if you have been confused by her coming back around, the apologies, the late night text, I want to encourage you to go deeper. My book, Narcissistic Wife, breaks down these manipulation patterns in much more detail. It'll help you understand the cycle, recognize her tactics, and reclaim your clarity so you can stop second guessing yourself. You can grab it on Amazon or Audible if you prefer the audiobook. And if you know another man who needs this episode or book, share it with them, because there are a lot of good men out there getting pulled back into cycles they were never taught to see clearly. So until next time, stay strong, stay steady, and stay narc free.